Hi everyone. So today we're looking at using your macrame board that we've made and making a bracelet. It's a very simple one, but we're looking at learning techniques, and it's better if we do it step by step. So the first thing I wanted to point out was I have changed my macrame board a little for the purposes of recording the videos. I have cut down a small amount from the top, and I've cut a small amount from the bottom. This is okay for most people's work. But one of the other things that I've done is if I can remove this, on the back of my board, I have put a piece of stiff card, and I've stuck it on and just creased it down. So then if I place that underneath, it's stuck down, but if I place that underneath, fold that, it's tucked underneath my mat, and that is going nowhere. One of the questions I was asked was about the board moving. So that has completely stopped that. And the slightly smaller size is much easier than my hands going out of shot when I'm trying to show you something. Okay, so what we're going to do first of all is measure our wrist. So if I take a piece of paper, card, anything, I can put it round my wrist and just fold it back, and that is my wrist measurement. So I can always note down what that size is, and actually it works out 20 centimeters. So you can write that down on the back of your board or anywhere, or just keep the piece of card that you've used. Okay. We're going to probably use that bit later. Right, the things that I've sorted out to do a similar one to this is a piece for the center core of my bracelet. Okay, so this one is 30 centimeters each side, so that's 60 centimeters. That is going to go right down my board, and we will have some left over, but that's fine. Right, the next thing we need is the main cord, and this is going to wrap around and do this piece here. So if you take the length of your finished bracelet and multiply it by 8, then you get the correct amount of cord. You'll still have a bit left over, but you won't get part way through and then not have enough to finish. So there's my cord. I've got some pony beads because they've got the big hole, and while you're learning, that is a great help. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is my bracelet wants to be 20 centimeters. So I've got my piece elastic band, and I'm going to put that on the 20 centimeter mark either side, because that's going to show me how far I need to knot and a good finishing point. So I'm going to put that to one side. Now, I wanted to teach you how to do this without having to buy a lot of jewelry findings and things. So there are lots on the internet that you can use. So there is one You can get barrel fittings that you can just screw together, but that would have to be a specific shop for you. So we're going to work with just simple things that are around the house. So my first thing there is I want to just mark the center for the moment of my cord. Okay, we're going to make a loop, right, for the bead to fasten. So if I open this out, there we go. Okay, I've made this little loop at the end, but we're going to do one slightly different. I'm going to do the posh version. So there is my halfway point at the moment, and I'm just going to do a loop on this end, not pull it tight, because all I want is that to go on there, and I'm going to stab that in there. I want to do my loop over this part of my cord. So I'm going to leave that in place for the moment, and I've got some beading thread, but you can use embroidery thread, you can use crochet cotton, you can do all sorts. So the first thing I'm going to do is working on this bit. I hope you've practiced your knots. Right. If not, please go back to the previous video and learn the knots, because this one you are doing in a very thin thread, and it's not easy for you to see it while I'm actually working. So please do go back to the previous video, and what I'm going to do is like to complete both sides of the knot. Okay, I'm going to do about that measures just about 1 centimetre. I want 2 and a bit, so I'm going to do this for 2.5 centimetres, and then I'll be back to show you how to position it. Right, so what I've done out of that spare piece of card is I've cut myself a piece that is 2.5 centimetres or 1 inch, right? And I'm using that to measure how far I need to do this loop. So I'll do another couple of stitches. It's 1/2. Let's check. One more stitch I think should do it. And always complete the second half. Right, I'm going to pull that out for the moment and try and give you a close-up of the work. So try and put that over there so you can see how delicate that is. And when we come on to more intricate things, we will be doing bracelets with very, very small threads. But let's put that there. Now I marked the center of my cord, so I'm just going to move my fingers down a bit, and I can slide this all the way down so it covers that halfway point. take that off and I can undo this now. Right, we've got this centered. So I'm going to fold that in half there, and to complete my loop, I'm going to just pop this in. I'm going to just try and catch both sides of that. So I've got my two halves of the loop down. And what I want to do is to do my next couple of threads over both of those threads there, pull it up towards the bottom and complete your second stitch. Okay. Now I can pull that tight there. Now I've done one stitch. If I take that off, I've done one stitch over both of those threads to join them together, and that joins my loop. So I'm going to do one more just to make sure that it's nice and tight. Yeah. There we go. So that now is a really neat loop that my other end, when we put a bead on there, will go through there. So now I can use that loop there to anchor my threads up there. These we're going to weave in a minute. So I just pull them down, and on this end I just want to do a little loose knot, take my T-pin, and I'm just going to push that in there. And the beauty of this is I can now raise it up and down on the T-pin. I've got a tension, but I can still get my fingers underneath. So for the moment, I'm bringing those two threads down with these center ones. Here's my working threads. So I want to find the middle. Good. There's my middle. So I'm going behind. And just for a minute, I'm going to take a T-pin and I'm just going to fix that. So I've got something I can hold and pull against. So I'm doing my normal threads. You can see it better on here because it's a thicker cord now that I'm working with. So there's my first one. I'm going to be doing 3 knots, 3 whole knots. There we go. 1, 2. There's 3 complete knots, so I can take that off now. And these threads, because we've worked the knots over them, we can now cut those and nothing will unravel. Now I'm going to undo this knot here because we now need to put our beads on. Push that up there, and it pays to put on more beads than you actually need. So I'm going to cut those level, and I'm going to put on, I think, 8 beads. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and we're going to add on. We can always add extras if we need it or take some off, but this will save us time. So I've got 8 beads. I'm going to tie a knot, loose knot at the bottom, take my T pin and just put that on the bottom, giving me a bit of tension. Pull your beads down and we're pushed one up into place. So then we're going to do 3 more knots. Always make sure that you pull them nice and tight. Two, 3. Take the next one, slide up that, push up and push the bead in. Right. Just loosely hold the bead there because you can then tie it tightly and it will push the bead right up next to the knots. So that's 1. 2, 3. Push the next bead into place and you're ready then to complete your knot. 1, 2. Right, I'm going to carry on doing that and we'll be back as I get towards the end of my marker. Okay, I've finished off all my knots and I've tested against my piece of card that it's the right length. And we're now going to do this piece here, which is going to be the bit that goes through our loop at the end. So I've got 2 small ends of the main thread and I've put 1 bead on, which is going to be our clasp. Okay, so I want to thread this, bring those ends up there, and I'm going to just fix down my bracelet up there so I've got a bit more tension. And I want to just catch these bits. Difficult to do it up in the air. So just going to use my T-pins to just fix those where I want them, because we're going to have a small area which we're going to do something called West Country whipping. So this one's come. Yep. Now these 2 bits come down the side and our West Country whipping is going to fix all those 4 threads together. Okay, so this just holds them out the way. Now we're going to use the same sort of thread. We're going to fold it over so you've got about 15 centimeters, 6 inches. And we're going to loop that over one of the pins because we want the loop to remain in there. So then I'm going to take the long end and I'm going to wrap, starting from the bead, round and round, pulling it very tight, but once I've got it going, I want to place each piece next to the one I did before. So I don't want any gaps as I'm whipping this down the thread. Always make sure that your short end is out the way. And whipping this thread. Now, when you've done a small amount, I pull it down towards the bead. Okay. Now, I'm going to leave that for the moment because I can now come down, and because I've caught all of these in, I can cut those threads off. Right. Pull it tight, pull it down. You may find it easier to actually take this off the board and do this in your hand. So I've now got right up to where my knots are. Okay, so I'm going to take these out. There's no danger of this unraveling, so I can cut that off. Make sure you don't cut that loop. And bring that down through there. I can now cut that side off. I'm keeping the bit I've whipped very tight, and I'm going to do a couple of extra turns to cover where I've cut those pieces off. Right, now the exciting bit. Right, we're going to take this end we've been whipping, put it through that loop and pull. Right, taking this short end, we're now going to pull it until that loop closes down onto the thread. Now this is the part where you're going to have to be very careful, because if we carry on pulling, that loop is going to be pulled down through, and if you pull too far, it will come out the bottom and the whole lot will unravel. So the idea is that we want to pull it so that this knot, this piece, comes part way down, and now the join I can just see there. I can cut that off, and I can cut that off, and it will never unravel. Get rid of my other bits. So let's unhook that, and if we look, we've got our bead. I can bring it up. Our bead in place, our West Country whipping down here, no ends, and we've got our loop that we did right at the beginning. Okay, so then our loop should go over the bead. Here we go. And there is a very neat fastening with no extra cost other than some threads you've got at home. And it is very durable. And this little piece here that goes round this loop is very delicate and beautiful. So let's tidy up my board. There is my bracelet, and it's exactly the right size and just done with the threads and the beads. Okay, So I'm going to break the video now, and I will record the next bit, which is going to be our tea light hanger. Okay.